Hi people, welcome back to my YouTube. It is your girl Honey. Welcome back people, welcome back. And those of you who are new here, welcome to my channel. I promise you I am not usually sat in the car like this, but I am today because I had to get out the house and be in some sort of sunlight and be in a really nice environment. I am sat in the park at the minute. I've got beautiful hills in front of me, and I thought I would just do the video from here. So I hope you guys are okay. But today we are going to be continuing on with the Saturn in the Houses series. Today we are doing Saturn in the 4th house. The 4th house is the house of the home, foundation, mother, security, the core to your emotions. And Saturn is your rules, regulations, restrictions, responsibilities, limitations, fear. I've had a few of you say, I don't have Saturn in my chart. Yes, you do. I don't have a 4th house. Yes, you do. Please make sure you are looking at the circular diagram of your birth chart and not the list form, okay? Unless the list form tells you what house your Saturn is in. Okay, so this was definitely one of the most requested ones, to be honest with you. And I noticed that this Saturn placement is very, very common. I do a lot of these readings for people with Saturn placed in the 4th house. So whenever I think about Saturn in the 4th house, the first thing that comes to mind, people, is how you guys were raised. Like, you guys are usually put into an environment where there's not a lot of love, there's not a lot of nurturing, hugs, kisses, cuddles, laughter even. There's just a restriction of emotion. And emotion can be happiness, sadness, envious. Like, it can be a multitude of different things, but there's a restriction to a lot of it. And that can be because you have parents, and sometimes parents can be older because Saturn represents mature. Parents can be older, or parents can have a lot of responsibilities that they just don't feel like they have time to laugh and joke and love on you when they've got a whole house to run, you know. 4th house Saturn people may have parents who are on the older side, and sometimes, you know, we've got to look at the moon's condition as well to give us more of a clue surrounding what's happening with this person's home environment, how they were raised, what they were exposed to. Do not park next to me. Give me some privacy, give me some space. I'm so tired of people always parking next to me. Like, you know what? I need to get some tints in my car. In my old car, I had tints. I had blacked out windows. You couldn't see inside or outside. So, for example, right, I read for a client the other day who had their moon in Aquarius. And a lot of the time, if I see Saturn placed in the 4th house with the moon in Aquarius, the moon in Gemini, even the moon in Scorpio, we'll get to that, but moon in Aquarius or Gemini in the 11th house or the 3rd house has a major indication for the type of environment that you were raised in. So essentially, we see that you may have been with babysitters, aunties, uncles, cousins. Think about the 11th house, 3rd house, Aquarius and Gemini as communities, right? And when your moon is placed in there, you would have been exposed to being raised in a community rather than being raised directly under your parents. Saturn in the 4th house can also show being raised by grandparents, but there being a restrictive relationship with your mum. When you think about mum, oh my God, someone else again. When you think about mum, mum is the first nurture giver that we are exposed to as children. And what I mean by that first nurture giver is our mothers breastfeed us. Our mothers hold us once we're born. Our mothers are there to emotionally support us. They are the first human beings who are there in our lives. So people who have Saturn placed in the 4th house, you may feel like, I never felt like I had a nurturing mother. Think of the house, think of the fourth house as the house of the home. Think about the fourth house being how you live, your environment. And people look at the house as my sanctuary, my peace. You know, people can be very proud of their homes, decorating it, fabrics, furnishings, everything just looks good, right? Fourth house Saturn people though, things can be a little bit different. We may see parents that were so busy at work, they had no time to furnish a house, or they just did not feel like it was a priority. They're trying to keep the house. So some people with Saturn placed here may experience parents, may have experienced parents that didn't have a lot of money. This is also associated with your relationship with food. If we see a Scorpio moon or a Capricorn moon, these are very restrictive moons. Fourth house Saturn, this person may have not really had a lot of food in the fridge. This person may feel like, I've learned to restrict my hunger. I've learned to control my relationship with food. And who's the first people to feed us? Our parents, our mothers. So there's going to be a restriction there, but I usually associate it with the lack of money. And I always say these people are raised on survival, not love. You could be a really sensitive person. You might have been a very sensitive child. But every time you cried, you expressed how you felt, you would have been shut down. And especially when you're being vulnerable to the people who you love, right? And if you can't even get a little bit back from them, this creates the learnt behavior. Well, if my own parents, the people, my family who I'm supposed to be close to, can't express vulnerability or love towards me, how can I do that towards other people? I do a lot of synastry readings for people, and they always ask, honey, why does it feel like my partner is so distant from me? Now guys, let me have a look at their fourth house. Let me see their fourth house. And sometimes it's not as easy as that. Sometimes it takes looking at the parents' charts, both parents, into that person's chart. So a three-way synastry. I've seen it where some people can be so emotionally restrictive because they grew up, because their mum and dad's Saturn were both exactly conjunct that person's moon. So imagine being a child and what you need, your parents are restricting that. The same thing as when Saturn sits in the fourth house. That's why it's important. Even if you are unaware of the birth time, the Saturn will still be accurate in terms of the degree and in terms of the sign. The house, obviously not. But this is very important to find out if that also has an effect on the person who you are with or yourself. So in this video, we are talking about Saturn in Cancer, Saturn in the fourth house, Saturn return, and Saturn transit all through the fourth house. Yeah, so I had to pause the video because people just all around my car. There's no privacy here. I'm a 12th house person. Give me some space, honey. So these people, Saturn in the fourth house people, have quite a challenging time also getting to know themselves, especially if Saturn is also opposing your midheaven and squaring your ascendant. Like, think about Saturn as restrictions, right? And for Saturn to be in a very personal house, this is the water house, there can be this deflection of my inner emotions. I want to deflect from that. It's too sensitive. There's too much going on there. Too much has happened. I want to forget about that. So a lot of the times we tend to avoid that area. And I don't agree with that, because Saturn's got to return through this house, right? And when it returns through this house, it reminds you of all of that trauma that you had repressed, that you had suppressed over the years. It comes right back up again. And what they don't realize is a lot of the things that they do every day is a reflection of what they experience as children. They may feel like, you know what, there's never food in my house as a child, so now as an adult there's always food in my house. Okay, as an adult my house was very small and, you know, very untidy, so now as an adult my house needs to be bigger, needs to be clean, it needs to have order and structure at home the way I want it to be. And if you're someone like me who asks questions and likes to dissect why, right, they hate people like us. They hate us because we ask questions about your past. We want you to revisit and give us an understanding as to why, because we know something's happened at home and you're deflecting, trying to avoid it, you know, because this is how you want to control your emotions, by not diving back into it. But when you are into psychology and you want answers, honey, you're going to ask these questions. And this is why it can be very hard for even dating, you know, having close friendships, because this is an emotional house and you guys are notorious for keeping it very personal and private to you. And it just makes it hard for us to get to know you if you are still trying to learn or still not aware of exactly who you are, you know? So remember I was saying, think about this house as emotions and what it is that we need to have. Sometimes you guys are feeling like, I don't deserve that, or I'm never gonna have that. There's a lot of similarities even when Saturn sits in the second house with this placement, because it's like there's always a fear of things being taken away from you, or happiness just not lasting long enough. So typically we're seeing, well, what's the point in even celebrating? What's the point in having a moment to enjoy when the reality is I've got to go back to work, I've got to pay for this house, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. The responsibilities continuously take over. Even as they grow, like, you know, as you get older, you would have had to grow up early anyway, right? But you would have felt like, you know what, I need to get my own place. Especially if there is a lot of pain in the 4th house with your moon, with family, you're gonna want to get your own place quite early. And you're gonna work very hard to do this. Putting in extra shifts at work, getting that deposit. This is if you're gonna buy a house, rent a house, whatever it might be. There's this need to be responsible of your own property. And because it's all about being very stable and also having a level of reliability, you might pick somewhere to work that's very close. You might pick somewhere to live that's very close to your work. You know, you might pick somewhere to live that is suitable to where it is you need to be every day. So we see you being very practical, but also making wise decisions when it comes to the place that you call your sanctuary. I want to talk about children, because this is something that also comes up quite a lot in the 4th house, because the house is the home of the family. The 5th house is more so in terms of children, but the 5th house is right next to the 4th house, so something has to follow on, you know, from the 4th to the 5th house. So these people really value a home environment. So these people really feel like, you know what, I need to have a beautiful house. I've got to purchase my property before I have kids, before I meet a partner. I've got to have everything kind of there structured, and my kids are going to be safe and comfortable, and they're going to have enough of my time, you know, my partner's time, to be able to be decent parents. So a lot of your focus is going to be, I want to be a really good parent throughout this journey of Saturn being in this house. And there is like a lot of pressure that you guys put on yourselves to be good parents. Now, sometimes Saturn can bring a very heavy dose of responsibility into your life. Maybe Saturn brings a sick parent, a sick grandparent, a sick child, or it brings a child very, very young, teenage parents. And it can also be, you know what, I don't even want to have kids. I'm not sure if I want to have kids. Remember, Saturn induces fears. So there's something very fearful about having additional sense of responsibility and also managing a home. That's just too much going on. It becomes frightening. So in the 4th house, and also being in Cancer, I get a lot of clients, especially my older clients, you know, who ask me, you know, or say to me, I don't have any kids. I'm not sure if I even want them, if I wanted them. There's just a lot of fear that you guys are carrying because of how you were raised. So again, this needs to be addressed, and I always say through therapy. I always say address this through therapy or reading up about it, learning about it, and trying to heal yourself, because this is an ancestral house, people, and you want to heal this house, heal yourself before you have kids, because the birth chart is our karma from our parents. My family, my parents' issues was commitment. What do I have? Fear of commitment in my chart. Why do I have that? My dad's right there. He is the reason. He is the reason. I have money issues in my chart. Why is that? Because of my mom. She's the reason. These are things that my parents didn't heal before having me, so now I've got to flip and pay for it. So having Saturn in your 4th house, maybe you've got to pay for your parents' lack of emotion, lack of substance, lack of being available to you, lack of vulnerability. And you have a journey in this life to heal yourself, so your kids don't have to deal with that. And that's something that I know you guys would take so flipping seriously. So let's talk a little bit about Saturn return and Saturn transit the 4th house. I have a lot of friends, particularly Libra risings, that have Capricorn in the 4th house, and Saturn has just gone through into Capricorn, and I witnessed a lot of things that happened to people. Different things happened, but there was 100% a theme. So your home environment became a thing. Hereditary illnesses became a thing. Let's say, you know, Saturn return happens every 28 to 30 years, right? And some people had been living on their own for the last 10 years. But you may lose your job because Saturn has to aspect the midheaven to get into the 4th house. So you might lose your job. And once you lose your job, you now can't afford to maintain your property. And you're trying to get work, it's not happening, there's problems going on. It could be anything. Maybe your lease runs out. You know, maybe your roommate isn't around how they're supposed to be and not paying their bills, and suddenly you've been evicted. So when this happens, right, you're now in a position where you're stuck. Where do you go? Back to mum's house, back to family's house, back to parents' house now. And Saturn is restriction, so it's never really a nice experience. You feel like you've taken a step back. And you feel like, damn, like I'm not where I want to be with work, you know? Some of my friends, like I look at Saturn as like maturity, elderly, older. I predicted my friend's grandma's passing. So we also see grandparents passing away. Sometimes it can be mothers, but we usually see mother's mum, so grandma, that passes away when Saturn comes through here. And you may have to now step up, you know, and be very emotionally responsible, you know, emotionally support your family, support your mum. There's just now more duty, more responsibility, in terms of the home and the family. But you know what I've also seen it manifest into? I've seen it manifest into some people who end up buying a house. And this is a good thing if you have very positive aspects to your Saturn, particularly Venus. particularly if you have the 8th house ruler in the 4th house, and also if you started the process at 27, because 27 is an association with the 4th house, right? And typically during the 27th year, there's more of a, you know what, I want to buy a house. There's more talking about that. So once you start doing the research to purchase property, you've got your money there, you start making those steps. By the time you reach 27, 28, you could have possibly have purchased a home. But I did a reading for someone who had purchased a home during their Saturn return, and they were very lucky. You know, some people are lucky enough to make great decisions, but some people aren't always so lucky, or some people just aren't in that position, and that's okay, because we can't all live the same lives anyway. But we've got to be a lot more open-minded to know what things to expect when it comes to our Saturn return, what things may happen. And I don't like to say that we prepare, because you can't necessarily prepare for your Saturn return. But what you can do is you can be open to different things happening. And I think with Saturn being in the 4th house, everything is going to be focused surrounding the home. But anyway, people, that is my video for Saturn in the 4th house. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Also, if you guys can please follow my Instagram, because I'm going to be putting out some content on there. I want you guys to kind of vote. You know, I'm actually starting a new series in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to call it Toxic Tuesdays. Yes. And we are going to be talking about toxic relationships, right? But celebrity style. So relationships that have just been horrendous. Ike, Tina Turner, oh, Kevin McCall, Eva, oh, like the list goes on. But I'd like you guys to give me some suggestions on what charts that I'd love to read up on when it comes to 2 very toxic relationships. I want to talk about it. So yeah, Toxic Tuesdays will be a thing in a couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to doing it. Peace out, people. Bye.